So it's only 18 months ago, this idea of, okay, let's focus on the first 25 years, until Microsoft is just getting started, that came up. And I got pretty enthused about that.
Create a new standard, it takes something that's not just a little bit different. It takes something that's really new and really captures people's imagination.
Never doubt the magic of software.
You'll notice that this scanner build, whoa.
I've ended up doing quite a bit of editing because, things like my programming or my relationship with my mom, nobody else can really get, because those are complex topics. The term autism initially was used in a pretty narrow sense, mostly for kids whose social connection was, even less than what I had. More recently, they're not the cutoff of, okay, if you have these kind of obsessive learning behaviors and you're slightly or somewhat below average on social skills, they'll say you're on the spectrum. And I assume nowadays they intervene in some ways that are beneficial. I was lucky enough to see I think he was a psychiatrist to, sort of who just talked to me about during my childhood, the conflict I felt with my parents and how he sort of talked me out of that as being something worth putting energy into, which was quite invaluable. But I've never, he was nice about, take this intelligence test and wow, you're good at this stuff. But, no terms were applied. And so for kids nowadays, is it better or worse that a lot of kids are diagnosed, a lot of different interventions happen. But that learning style I have of intense concentration is, was very beneficial to me, even though the social things, were much more difficult. Kind of set in my ways at this point. I'm not going to start taking medicine or something. My parents, found some of my behaviors a little bit confusing in that, I was so good at some things and then, didn't show much interest and wasn't willing to engage in certain things. And, fortunately for me, the two things they really did about that, one was have me talk to this psychiatrist, and the other was getting me to go to a school, which was a private school with smaller class sizes, Lakeside, that both the teachers there and the other kids I met, really were incredibly beneficial. And of course, that's where I first am given the opportunity at age 13 to play around with a computer funded by a Mother's Club rummage sale. I wanted to dimensionalize that, my parents' concerns were similar to what parents have today, with a kid with different learning styles. And, it is kind of confusing because your kid it's such a mixed set of things, and, will they grow out of that, or how do you help them take advantage of the good parts of it? Whatever it is that lets me go off and, push myself to really understand something, including watching lots of videos, reading lots of books, that has been extremely beneficial to me. Both in nurture and nature, I'd say I was incredibly lucky. My parents, my timing, meeting Kent, meeting Paul, all of it is, you wouldn't have to change much for it to come out with a lot less success. I remember going to a high school reunion once, and I think it was like my 15th year reunion, and everybody's, sitting around listening to stories, and, other people have good stories too, but, there's a lot of interest in what I'm up to. And one girl, not the girl I asked out to prom, but another girl came up and said, "Boy, I didn't even know you had a personality." And I was like, okay, I hit it very well. Well, most of them are probably best to ignore because they're, maybe a few thousand people in some weird group. Like there was a recent one about how I'm trying to change the weather. It's such a fringe thing that any notice I take of it would actually make it worse. They'd be like, aha, it must be true, he's denying it. Things that go mainstream, like the Robert Kennedy Jr. book, that says that, vaccines are bad and that somehow I'm making money on vaccines, that, because it's, been widely read, I do feel the need to speak out and say, hey, this is completely, the opposite of the truth of how we should think about vaccines and how what the Gates Foundation working with partners has been able to achieve. If you're looking for simple explanations, the idea that there's some, weirdly talented billionaire who's somehow behind the scenes manipulating things is an easier story to understand than, something that has to do with a bat and a virus and we see that with, George Soros. We see it with, a lot of people over time. The fact that the pandemic led to an increase of that people were so desirous of some explanation that it even got off into things like that I was trying to track people's location by embedding something in the virus. I mean, you just have some of it, even though you want to do everything you can to disabuse people of these things, you really do have to have a sense of humor about it because, it's so random and so, either untrue or in many cases the opposite of the truth. I've loved pushing forward innovation, particularly innovation that's an equalizer, whether that's the Microsoft stuff or the climate change stuff I do through a group called Breakthrough Energy or my main, focus both financially and with my time, which is the Gates Foundation. Gates Foundation is turning 25 years, Microsoft 50 years. The same year that I turned 70. And, so I hope I have another 20 plus years of interesting, impactful work, which, at this stage, it's all philanthropic.